this is really cool. Look at this. Astrophotography tool and PhD 2 on my tablet, connected via VNC to the rig in the garden, and I'm not sat here freezing. Yeah, super cool. Of the videos on this channel, 10% of them are made up 63% of the time, 52% of them are true on the second Tuesdays of each month, 12 of them are mostly accurate after sunset, and all the rest of them are infinitely impossible. But with that in mind, thank you for 300 subscribers. You're all marvellous. Here we are in Pixinsight, and let's start off by doing a stretch on this image that we've got. So this is straight out of Deep Sky Stacker. I've unlinked on the screen transfer function and I hit this button here. So we select the image and we hit this button and it's now stretched the image. So that's the image as it came out of Deep Sky Stacker. So we've done a stretch here. Now this at the moment isn't actually applied to the image. This is just to allow us to see it. And the first thing that I always do is go into background neutralization. I don't change anything here at all. All I need to do, so I was just resetting it from previous use. I'm just going to drag the triangle and drop it onto the image. And then you clear the stretch and restretch. So that just sorts out the background a little bit. Then we need to do color calibration. Again, just using the default settings. And then we clear out the stretch and reapply it. There we go. And then the last thing to do is SCNR, which removes any green tinges to the image. So we just drag and drop. Again, default settings on this, just let it do its job. Great, and then I clear out the stretch and put it back in again. Brilliant, so we've done those three. The next thing I'm going to do, because you can see there's some movement from the stacking around here where the mount has just moved around a tiny bit. So I'm going to use a dynamic crop. So we go processes, all processes, and then we go down to dynamic crop. And then we just crop out the bits we don't want. So that's the area that I do want. And that's great. And now because this is a dynamic process, you have to remove it. So I'm going to close dynamic crop now because we'll be using another dynamic process later on, which is for background removal. So I don't want that active at the moment. Now this particular part of space has a lot of stars, so I'm going to create a star mask. So we go into star mask here, and I'm just going to remove any previous settings. On the screen transfer function tool, I'm just going to reset it and reapply it. If you go into the spanner and copy this value here, and then click OK, and then put that into the shadows value, and then go back into the spanner and copy this value here, and then we put that into the midtones value, and then we apply this to the image, and that will produce a star mask. Okay, we now have a star mask. We're going to keep this because we need it for the rest of the processes that we're going to use. So I'm going to apply this star mask to our image by dragging and dropping the tab, and then this turns a kind of brown color, and then we can just make that small. I'm going to put my star mask down there. Anything in this image that's red is protected. Anything that isn't red is going to be affected by our next process. So let's go to mask and select the image, mask, and then show mask. So the mask is still applied because we've got the brown tab, but we can just see the image. We're now going to use morphological transformation to reduce the stars. I'm just going to reset everything there and then drag it across, and just using the defaults as much as possible. And you can see quite notably that has reduced the stars quite a lot. So I'll undo it, and they've popped back, and then redo it, and they've reduced. So I think that's a good improvement there as well. And if we zoom in a little bit on the image, I can't see too many artifacts around the stars. That's pretty good. So yeah, I'm going to keep that. So that's good. Now we're going to use the second dynamic process that we've got, which is dynamic background extraction. So we go process, all processes, and then down to dynamic background extraction. And I'm going to generate some samples on this image. So I'll quickly select the image. I'm going to do 17 samples and click generate, and it should now look at the image and generate some more. Now I don't think there are enough there because there are no samples really in this area, there are no samples here, and there are a few here, which, so let's I'm going to just change the tolerance to 2 and then re-click generate. Oh, that's better. So it's got a lot more samples. You can see the samples here. Now what you ideally have to do is go through and move every single sample so it is not on a star. Can you see how difficult it is in this area, because there are literally so many stars? So it's going to be a bit of a tricky process, so I'm just going to go through a few of these. The other important thing is to make sure that there aren't any samples in the nebulosity, which we want, because it will think that that's part of the background to be removed. So I'm just going to move any of these that are in the red, because I don't really want the nebulosity removing at all. So I'm just going to go through a few of these. Okay, so I'm now going to go down to correction on target image correction and go subtraction, and then I'm going to apply this to the image. It has produced 2 images. One is the background, which it has removed. So if I do a stretch on this, so this is all the stuff that it's removed, and we don't want that, so we'll just get rid of that. And this is our new image. So if I stretch this, we should hopefully see when we compare the two together. If I just reduce the dynamic background extraction and we compare the two, this one looks a lot cleaner. It has a lot less variation. See, it's darker over here and that's gone from over there, which is great. So that's our original image there, which I'm just going to make smaller, so it's not actually gone, it's still there. And this is the new image which we're now going to be working on. I'm actually going to close the dynamic background extraction tool, and I'm going to select this image and then clear down the stretch and then re-stretch again. The next step is to do a bit of noise reduction. You can see when you zoom in on an image like this, you've got quite a lot of noise here, which we can improve on the image. And to do that, we're going to use the multi-scale linear transform. And I'm just going to clear off these values. So the first task we have to do is select noise reduction, and then we need to change these values. So the values that I'm going to use are 3.33 and 3 iterations. And then for the second one, I'm going to use 1.5 and 2 iterations. And then for the third one, we're going to go 0.5, 0.5 and and 1. So that's good. And then we need to apply that to the RGB and K components. So I'm just going to drag that across. Okay, let's compare that. So that's before. You could quite visibly see a lot of the noise there, and then after, it has improved it quite dramatically. So I'm really pleased with that. That's great. So we're now going to do exactly the same, but we're going to use the chrominance, and we're going to use 7 layers for this. And then yet again we go into noise reduction, and the values that I'm going to put in are 3, 1, 1, so those are left as default. And then we go 3, 1, 1 again for default. And now we change them for the third layer. So we're going to go 2, 1, 1. And then for the last one, I'm actually just going to go 1, 1, 1. And let's apply that. Okay, let's zoom in a bit. So I've zoomed in quite a lot again, and we'll undo that. Undo and redo. I couldn't see a huge change there, but I think it has made a slight difference, but I'm going to leave that on anyway, so that's fine. So we're finished with multi-scale linear transform. Our next step is to go from the linear phase to the non-linear phase. So what we're going to do is we're going to stretch this image for real. So I'm just going to reset the screen transfer function because we're going to use this, and then stretch the image again. So that's the most recent stretch. Then I'm going to go into histogram transformation, which is this tool here. Reset everything on there. And then taking the triangle, I'm going to drop it onto this bar. Then that's applied the settings in the screen transfer function to this window here. I'm then going to start a preview. So this is our preview, and you can see that it's completely white, and that's because we've got the screen transfer function still applied. So I'm going to remove that. So the screen transfer function has now been removed. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to tweak this because it's quite a severe stretch at the moment. So I'm just going to pull that back a bit. I don't want to crush the blacks too much, because I do want to see this nebulosity around here. I think it looks really nice. Okay, that's good for a preview. Now let's apply that to our actual image. So if I just drag and drop onto our image, now this image has been stretched. Now the next step is an interesting step. What we're going to do is remove the stars using StarNet. Now StarNet is an amazing tool, and what you have to do in Pixinsight is configure it to work by going to the spanner and then navigating to C, Program Files, Pixinsight, Library, and then RGB Weights file. And then likewise with the grayscale, you go C, Program Files, Pixinsight, Library, Mono, StarNet Weights file, and you have to navigate your way to those and click OK. Once you've done that, in StarNet, you get 2 nice healthy ticks here that tells you that it's happy. Now we want to be able to add the stars back in afterwards, so you need to create a star mask from this. You don't need to change any other settings, you just need to apply this to your image. Okay, it's now removed the stars, so let's have a look at our image. Now, one thing which I've learned when I looked at this image is that we've got our image here, which is all of the stars removed, and then we've got this image here which looks horrific. It looks really blotchy. So wherever the stars were, if you notice, I've got these blue halos, which I've never known before. I've only just started using this particular feature, but you can really see the blue halos around the stars. And I'm not sure if that's chromatic aberration from my telescope, or if that's the filter I was using on this occasion, because I realized halfway through imaging that I was not using the right filter. I was using a broadband filter. It's a good filter. It's the Optilon L Pro filter, which is very good, but it's a broadband filter, whereas I should really have used my L Enhance filter, which is much tighter bandwidth, and I wonder whether that would have fixed this blue halo around these stars. I'm not too worried about it, because when I put the stars back in at the end, the blue halos, while still being there, will actually, I think, not be too bad. So I'll see how the process goes. We're going to use this star mask later to add those back in, so let's minimize that and we'll put that somewhere safe. The next step is to go into the curves transformation tool, and we're going to choose saturation and start a preview. What I'd like to do is try and enhance some of the reds and the blues in this part of the nebula. So I'm going to pull these up and let's just remove that. You can really see the difference there. We'll apply that to our image. What I'm now going to do is go into color saturation and then also create a preview, and I want to select the blue color, so it's roughly there, and I want to bring up that blue color. And now I want to choose the red, which is at the top there, and do exactly the same again. Okay, I'm going to apply that. What I'm going to do now is use local histogram equalization to try and bring out some of the detail in the image. So I'll start a preview with this, and then I'm just going to see if I can bring out some of this information. That's way too much. So that's with it applied, and that's without it applied. So I think with. What I'm going to do now is separate the red, green and blue and the luminance from this image. So I'll select the image, go Image, Extract, RGB, and then Image, Extract, Lightness. But I've now got RGB and luminance here. We're now going to go into LRGB combination. You literally just select them, it'll automatically select them from the active windows you've got. And now I'm going to just tweak these levels a little bit just to see if we can bring out some more detail. That's our new image. Now what we're going to do is bring the stars back into our image. And to do this, what we're going to use is pixel math. In pixel math, what you have to do is tell it to add different images together. So I'm going to go to the expression editor, and it then shows us all of the images we've got. So this is the image we want at the moment, image 11. So I'm going to double click on that, and then I want to add that, so plus, and then a bracket, and I'm going to just do 75.75 times, which is the little star symbol, and then the star mask which we created here, star mask 1, which is that one there, and then we close the bracket. And now we click OK, and it's populated that calculation there, and now we need to just execute it, and it's added those stars back in. So we can now begin to see our image. Now the stars look a bit blue for my liking, and I think what we're going to do, I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to change the calculation. I'm going to make that 85 instead. That's a little bit better actually. Yeah, I've still got these huge halos around them, but the image isn't looking too bad. So the final bit I'd like to do now is some noise reduction. So I'm going to create a preview by clicking on this window and just drawing on a bit of space and then selecting it. I want to try and improve the noise. So I'm going into TGV denoise, and I'm just going to drag and drop the settings onto the preview. Okay, I think that worked pretty well actually. So if I zoom in a little bit and then reset it, you can see it got rid of quite a lot of that background noise there. So we'll go to our actual image and we'll apply that. Okay, I think that looks pretty good actually. And that's, I think, the final image. So I'll export this by going File, Save As, and save 16-bit, and OK. And this is the final image as we have just made.